Hey there, it's Lisa Danforth, business strategist and leadership vision coach. And today I'm here with Lori Highby, who is the CEO and founder of Keystone Click, as well as the host of Social Capital Podcast, which I've been on and was a lot of fun. Absolutely loved it. But before we jump in and Lori shares her brilliance and all of these amazing tools and strategies that you need to help you get your marketing strategy out there, I'd want to just ask you if you could pop into the chat box. Where are you dialing in from? Because we're going live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So we'd love whether you're dialing from there or where in the world are you dialing in from. And I would absolutely love to hear. And before I jump in, I just want to share a couple of upcoming lives that I've got going on. Super, super excited. Next week, I'm chatting with John Shraven, who is going to be talking about negotiation. He says negotiation is not combat, which is always good to know because it makes most people's hands sweat, right? Does it yours, Lori?
Oh, yeah.
And then October 15th, I'm speaking with Bill Atkinson, who is a Navy SEAL and teamwork expert. He's going to be talking about character and the importance of bringing character to everything that we do. October 22nd at noon Eastern is Lisa Wilson, who's a leadership vision coach. She's going to be talking about leadership in tough times and how it requires more self-care. I'm raising a hand on that one. I think it's just we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. And at the end of the month, we've got Paula Diaco from Write Stories Now. She is a book and writing coach. So for Lori and I, who have been talking about writing our book, she's phenomenal.
Slightly derailed a little bit, but yes. Like everything in the world right now.
I think COVID threw a curveball on a lot of people's plans and whatnot. But yeah, all of the lives coming up are on Thursdays at noon. I hope you can join us. Check them out. And I want to introduce Lori. Lori is, again, the CEO and founder of Keystone Click. Can you hear an echo?
Slight echo, yeah.
Keystone Click, and she also has the podcast Social. I'm going to be plugging in while I'm doing this. Sorry for the.
There we go. There you go.
How's that? Podcast goes for Social Capital. And here is the bio, because I want to make sure I get it all, because this woman has got it going on. She's got so much experience. With a core personal value of lifetime learning. I love that, Lori. Lori Highby has shared creative and strategic digital marketing and personal branding and entrepreneurship lessons with people and organizations from all over. Her 20 years of experience, education, and involvement range from currently owning a digital marketing agency, Keystone Click, being the 2013 recipient of Bravo Entrepreneur Award from Biz Times Media, also teaching undergraduate students as an adjunct professor at UW-Milwaukee, and also serving on numerous boards, including the Better Business Bureau of Wisconsin. And today we're talking about research and why it's so vital in developing your digital marketing strategy. I've heard this from so many people. Research is where we really need to start. So Laura, I'm going to hand it off to you if you want to share a little bit more about yourself, what you do. We'd love to hear it.
Oh, sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show today. I know you and I have a lot in common. We talk, think, and believe and act the same way. It seems like, even though we're not neighbors by any means. Yeah,
we are virtually.
We are right now. We are, yes. Yeah, definitely a fan of continuous learning and education. And one of the things I do believe in is paying it forward. And as far as continuing to educate those and anything that I learn. And as a marketing professional, especially in today's day and age, thought leadership is so critical to really building your brand and separating yourself from your competition. And the more that I learn, the more that I'm able to give to my community. So that's the short story, I guess. I mean, I could talk for hours on on me, but let's talk about research. I mean, that's where there's some really meaty topics right now.
I would love to ask a question first, though. Like,
sure.
How did you get into this? You are so passionate about it. Every time I talk to you, and every time I see you, you're on a new podcast, you're doing another workshop, you're joining another group. Like, it's just amazing. How did you get into this?
Sure. So I actually started going to school for commercial art. I'm very creative. I love the arts in general in all forms. Personally, painting is my medium of choice. And while I was going to school, I was actually working full-time at a web development firm. So this was very early stages of the web. And I found that the designers were sitting at their desk all day long, and the sales guys and the account managers were out doing the fun things. So that was one thing that triggered my shift a little bit. The other thing, though, actually, I was in a sociology class, and I was really fascinated by how creativity, so an image or a message, can really impact or influence someone's decision on how they act, and not just on buying something, but how they make a change in their personal habits, and what they believe in. So that really kind of shifted my interest in going broader when it comes to the creativity space and pursuing marketing. Since I was working at a web development company, and I shared with the owner at the time that this is the path that I'm interested in, and he allowed me to kind of take my education and apply it immediately in my role within that organization. And I was doing SEO and pay-per-click and email marketing and all those other acronyms before they were hot words and buzzes out there. And it just kind of stuck, and I was just fascinated with the data, which we'll get into with the research side of things, but really seeing how you can make an impact on someone's business and see it immediately in the digital space.
So let's jump in.
All right.
Why research? Like, really sort of dig deep in that. Just like, how do we start with that?
How do we start for research? I mean, at the end of the day, you really have to understand, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What
clarity?
Yeah.
Foundation for everything, right?
100%. I feel like that's a question I ask more often than not, is what is your goal at the end of the day? And when you understand what your goal is, then you can kind of work backwards and reverse engineer that and figure out, okay, what are some of the things that I need to do in order to get there? But really, before you even start implementing any sort of tactics, you need to understand what those tactics should be that are going to help you achieve your goal. And in order to do that, that's where you start researching. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing darts in the dark. You're making assumptions. And there's a saying, I don't know how about the word assume, which we don't want to do. So we want to have confidence in the decision that we're making. And I'm a big fan of collecting the data points so you can make intelligent business decisions that help you achieve the goal that you are trying to achieve at the end of the day.
Right. And how do you make those intelligent decisions when you don't have that goal?
Yeah, right? You're making assumptions, and yeah, you need a goal to work towards. See the screen, but I like to, when you're building a strategy, it's more. I like to align it with a GPS device. You plug in the address to your final destination, which is your goal. But that technology is looking at, where are you today? Where are you currently? And then it's mapping out some options. And I know I use Apple Maps, where they give me 3 options. There's not one direct path. There's always going to be detours and hiccups that happen on this route. But knowing where you're going, you have to know where you are today. And that research is actually going to help you define and bring clarity to where you are today.
Love that. And talking about where you are today, I'm going to give a shout out to Leora Dowling, who is joining us from South Burlington, Vermont. It's actually a neighbor of mine in South Burlington. So thanks for joining us, Leora.
Hi.
Yeah, GPS is so important. I like to call it goals, priorities, and strategies. You've got to have the goals to make the priorities to create the strategy. Can you talk a little bit more about tactics? We all have sort of our opinion of what a tactic would be, but I think working towards the digital marketing, creating that strategy, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, the tactics are any channel that's available online today, and there's new tools and resources that are coming out every single day. So a tactic could be, having a Facebook group, doing LinkedIn live videos, paid ads on Google, starting a podcast. There's so many different ways to implement and achieve the goal. And that's why it can be overwhelming, actually. You read a news article that says, oh, you have to be on TikTok because it's the most popular channel right now. But no, I'm not there. I mean, I download the tools and the apps just because I need to understand them, on behalf of my clients. But the goal of being on TikTok, is that really helping you, or implementing the tactic of being on TikTok, is that really helping you achieve your goal? You're not going to know the answer to that until you understand your target customer and figure out, well, are they hanging out on this channel? Mm-hmm. Or are they hanging out somewhere else? So understanding what tactics to implement are really fueled by the research that you conduct.
I love what you said about that, about where are they hanging out? Mm-hmm. That is something that I hear from so many clients, colleagues, whatever. Like, how do you start even doing that research for finding out where your ideal audience is spending time?
It's a great question. And that's one of the things that we always like to start doing with our clients is understand their customer. And I'm actually surprised at how many business owners that I talk to that really don't know the ins and outs of who their target customer is. And I like to say, fish in the pond that your clients are actually swimming in. So in order to know your customer, I mean, you to some extent need to get inside their head and understand what are their fears, what are their challenges, what are their dreams, what do they aspire to be and do, and some of these answers are going to help fuel where are they hanging out. But really, you want to understand what's their biggest pain. Because that pain that they have, that hopefully you are the ultimate solution for, is what's going to drive a lot of the strategy. Mm-hmm. It's going to drive very specifically the messaging strategy, but it's also going to fuel where they're hanging out, or more importantly, who's influencing their buying decision. So are they listening to certain podcast hosts? Are they subscribed to certain newsletters? Do they follow certain channels on social media? Are they engaged in some specific groups on social media? That is often influenced by the pain that they have. Some other things that you really want to dive into with your customer, and this is something that we offer as a service, is we actually will interview our clients' customers. It's extremely important, and I find that having a third party do this versus the client do it themselves, we get a lot more information because they're not afraid to tell us something that they may be afraid to talk to their account manager or customer service rep about. But the types of questions that we will ask is, how did they find you? Why do they keep buying from you? What are the pains that you're solving? And this is an interesting one. We spoke about pains just a moment ago. But what I find is when I ask my client these questions, like, so why do people buy from you? And then I ask the customer, why do you buy from them? Oftentimes it's a completely different answer.
Isn't that wild? Right?
So they're making assumptions, which we spoke. That is not what we want to do. We want to be confident in the decisions that we're making to help us make intelligent business choices down the road.
The decisions that we're making and the money that we're investing, money and time that we're investing. And what I really heard you say, Lori, was you need to get out there and get in front of your client, to actually pick up the phone, send an email, whatever it may be, to ask your client what's going on for them. Because I think so often we want to stay in our office and design at the whiteboard, create an amazing program or strategy, and then put it out there. But to really push ourselves beyond what's comfortable so that we know that when we're investing our time and our money, it's in something that we are not assuming.
Correct. So we just finished a research and strategy project for a client, and we asked the client these same questions, and then we say, okay, now introduce us to 2 customers that you like and that are profitable, because we want to know, and we really want to get in the head of the customers that we want to attract more of. We don't want to just pick any customers. We want the right kind of customers to us. And then we will ask them those same questions. So when we asked our client, why are they buying from you? Their response was, well, we have the best price. When we asked their customer that question, the response was, we love the customer service and you bring ideas to the table. Mm-hmm. So they were totally on opposite spectrums, and they just thought it was all about price. So none of their messaging, their marketing came to, we have amazing customer service, or really sharing the ideas publicly, because that is what their buyer is interested in, not price. So doing that research helped fuel the overall messaging strategy for their marketing campaigns.
Brilliant. So simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean easy. And I think that's where we definitely get caught up. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about, have you seen sort of a golden thread of where your client and then their clients have been off? You just shared the example of the one with the best prices and then mm-hmm. their customer service. Is there any consistency across the board that you've seen so people can kind of lean in on that one?
I think that the assumptions related to why they buy, actually, what their pain is, what their challenge is. So going back to that specific customer scenario, what they do is, well, they're a printing company. They do direct mail and printing, which printing is a challenging space to be in right now. Mm-hmm. And it can be price driven, but then if you're focusing on price, you're more of a commodity item, which you don't want to be, especially, today's day and age. You really want to be bringing value at the end of the day. So they were so stuck on that price, people buy from them for price, that there's nothing you can do to differentiate yourself when it comes to price, because to some extent that's a given, again, if you're a commodity item. But focusing on that value component that was important to the client. And, people are trying to stand out and be different today. And knowing that their customers appreciated the ideas that were being brought to them is what is their differentiator, and why they kept staying with them is so important and powerful. So again, really understanding the pain that you are solving for the customer versus the assumption of this is why someone's buying from us.
Yeah, understanding the pain. But also, I just think it's so important. I want to highlight what you said, which is customer service, right? Mm-hmm. When you're competing on just the dollar, you keep getting undercut, but that customer service piece is just so important. Mm-hmm. And how can you tie that together? This may sound like a silly question, but tie that together, that customer service piece and the research to be able to support your clients at a higher level.
So the customer service I guess elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, when you do the research, right? Mm-hmm. When you do the research, how does that impact your customer service for your ideal clients, up leveling it? I guess I'm kind of asking more to highlight the importance of understanding it, so that if this is what my clients are looking for, that this is exactly what I'm going to double down on. So just sort of another story about that, or.
Yeah. So, the research doesn't just impact your marketing activities. It can definitely kind of change your whole business structure. So if we're using customer service as an example, and knowing that this is something that their customers value, you can communicate that to the rest of the team and say, this is how you really take that relationship with our customers to the next level, is by bringing these ideas to them, or whatever it is that is important to the customer. It's definitely good to let the entire team know, or the organization know, what the customer appreciates about working with you.
Great. So I want to back up just a little bit. And circle back to the tactics. Now that you sort of know what the pain points are, right? You're gaining more clarity there. Mm-hmm. You talked about the different social platforms. I know that I've been in business for 28 years, and I still struggle with, I don't know what magazine my ideal client reads, or what social platform they're on, although I am narrowing down to LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. But how would you suggest, how would you help guide people to figure out which platform is for them? Because we can't be on every single platform. Right?
Sure.
We can't go horizontal and vertical at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with that. You can't be everywhere, and you can't be everything to everybody. So again, it's just asking those questions, and it doesn't hurt to survey your customers, but also just go out and look. If you have a specific audience that you're pursuing, it might be a little trial and error and say, okay, is everyone hanging out on Facebook? Are there groups for this specific audience, or are they really active on LinkedIn? But from a high level standpoint, you can just know that LinkedIn is definitely a stronger place for B2B. Facebook has been shifting a bit, where it was definitely more consumer facing, but there's a lot of business happening in groups that requires a lot of time. But if you're willing to make that time commitment, it can be very lucrative for you and your business. But email is extremely powerful too. And that is really, I would say, I don't want to say industry agnostic, because there's definitely some individuals that don't spend a lot of time on email. It depends on who your audience is. But asking your customers, if you have really good relationships with some of your clients, ask them, hey, where do you spend most of your time? Where are you engaging? Do you subscribe to emails? Do you listen to podcasts? The more that the more you understand your customer, the better you can kind of focus and say, this is where I need to spend my time because this is where my customer is. Alternatively, what you could do is create your own community and invite that customer, that target audience, to your community and your platform that you own.
This is true. I like what Leora just said. Looking for groups sounds like a smart idea. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Lori? As in, do you jump out and look at 28 different groups, or do you target a certain amount and then just sort of keep moving from there?
So right now, I'll tell you what I'm doing. So we target the manufacturing space. B2B primarily is what we offer, both professional services, but we do put an emphasis on manufacturing that we go pursue specifically. So on LinkedIn, I look for groups related to manufacturing. I join the group, I participate and see what kind of activity is happening. I engage and comment with other individuals' posts while also posting my own value add information. Facebook has a lot of groups, not so much on the manufacturing side, but there are a lot of small business owners that are in groups. So I just typed the word owner into Facebook and then filtered it by groups, and you can see tons of groups specific to owners, and then you join them.
Right?
Yes.
So those are the research strategies that I think are really, all of this is really great, but that's just so tactical that people can jump in and start seeing the value of that. Can you talk a little bit about using hashtags?
Oh, sure. Hashtags. Ooh, those are powerful, and they're getting more and more powerful. So Twitter was the founder of the hashtag to some extent, the pound sign. I don't know if many kids know what that is anymore. But what I love about hashtags is that you can actually kind of, it's a way to filter your content. I think that's the best way to describe it. So if you want to be consistently showing up under a certain tag, so let's say I use the hashtag digital marketing fairly often in my LinkedIn posts and my tweets and Facebook posts. And that way, if anyone wants to click on that hashtag, it'll filter every single piece of content that's been published related to that specific post. I can tell you it's kind of fun on LinkedIn when you get that little notification that says, oh, your hashtag is trending or your post is trending under this hashtag. Yeah. But what's wonderful about that is that means that your content is getting in front of an audience that is not familiar with you already. And that's the beauty of a hashtag.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to give a shout out to Kate Payne, who just joined us, who is the LinkedIn expert that I was talking about a little earlier. I remember her reaching out to me when one of my first articles or posts got your hashtag is trending. And I was like, oh, just so excited. And her insight, which was so simple, but I didn't think of it. She's like, you need to start writing more about that topic. I was like, oh yeah, just those simple things really elude us. So yeah.
Well, and that goes back to the customers a little bit. If something's trending or you have a topic that has a lot of engagement, that means people are interested in it, and you've hit one of those pain points. So continue to produce content along those lines as well.
Right. Create your strategy. Do your research. Create your strategy. I'm going to throw this up here. What one person asked, how extensively should your marketing be? You mentioned contacting 2 customers that the company likes and are profitable. How large and why should your marketing sample be?
That's a good question. And I'm going to say it depends, really, at the end of the day.
Always, right?
Yeah, that's a broad answer, and I know. And I was just chatting with someone the other day that said, "So why only 2?" And I would say if you've got a lot of diversity in the products that you offer and the types of customers or clients that you service, then you are going to want to broaden that research and really understand the unique pain points. But if you have a very specifically defined audience, it's pretty much the same deliverable that you're providing, then 2 to 3 customers, you're going to find you're going to get the same kind of insights from them. At least that's been our experience typically.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you. Thanks for asking the question. Lots of conversation going on in the chat there, which I always absolutely love. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the resources that have helped you and that you would suggest for other people to start investigating?
Oh, I love this part. So some of my favorite tools, and this really goes down to how people are searching for the product or service that you provide. There's a great website called answerthepublic.com. So you just type in a word or a phrase, and it's going to actually push out a ton of responses, basically the inquiries that are being entered into Google related to that phrase. And why this is so powerful, that means someone is searching for this specific search phrase. Therefore, you can be the solution provider. You can create content that's that thought leadership content that's answering those questions, proving your expertise. So it's a really good starting point to figure out what type of information should I be publishing online. The other thing I really am a fan of is just really figuring out, it all comes, what type of content should be creating. I mean, that's kind of that center point of what fuels everything else you're doing. What are the questions that people are asking you in general?
We overlook the basics so
seriously
for some reason. Yeah, I like that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I like to say, just for the next week, have a notepad next to you, and every time you're on a call with someone or even in your inbox, just keep a list of the questions that are being asked related to what your offering is. And then you're going to see some trends, and that's great fuel for content to publish on LinkedIn, in your email, on social media, on a podcast, webinar, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Just circling back to the answer the public, which I just find to be so fascinating. It's just overwhelming, all the little answers that come out. One of the ways that I use that is by, you've got that certain phrase or word. It helps me come up with headers for each one of sort of the paragraphs or the questions that I want to ask, because you can see people are searching it. That is such, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's such a great way to start your research, right? That just, although it can be a rabbit hole that you go down and spend hours researching. It's a lot of fun.
Another one, so you mentioned headers, and that triggered another one that I really like. If you just go to Google and type in headline analyzer, there's a couple of different tools that will help you decide what headline to use. And the headline can be the subject line of your email, the title of your blog post, what you call your next webinar or event. And the reason that's important is because that is ultimately the trigger that encourages someone to click to learn more about it. Click the email to open it. If your email subject line is just October newsletter, there is absolutely zero reason why I should open it. But if the email subject line is, 10 ways to save money in the rest of 2020, you piqued my interest, and I'm at least going to open it. Those headline analyzer tools are going to give you insights related to the emotional and intellectual value that is being provided, and ultimately what's going to help encourage someone to click through and make that next step.
Kate, can you talk a little?
I was going to say, Kate says she loves the headline analyzer.
Yeah,
great.
Kate's got all the. She's a go-to as well. Like, just there's if I'm searching for something, she's going to help me definitely. Can you talk just a little bit more, and then I'm going to circle around. Leora, thanks for posting that question. I'm going to circle around to it in just a sec. But you said emotional and intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit more about that and explain it at a higher level.
Yeah. So basically, content is going to connect with people on either an emotional or intellectual level. So emotional could be, scary, funny. It's some sort of entertainment to some degree. It's going to connect with them at the heart level, and just have some sort of an emotional impact. That people connect on emotions. And intellectual, you need to increase people that like to think and learn, so at one point or another, your content is going to thrive if it's adding value on an emotional or intellectual level. So look at the information that you're publishing and ask yourself, is this emotionally engaging or intellectually engaging? If it's not, that should be a trigger that says, I need to step up my game on the content that I'm producing.
Yeah, definitely. I love those little, I can't write, not divvy builder. It's something within my website that'll say that here's the emotion that you're, eliciting, so, which is super helpful. Leora had asked a question. I'm going to go back to this question about turnaround time. If you got a couple of articles that are popular, how many weeks before you can jump on that again? Thanks, Leora. Excellent question.
I would say make hay. Well, I don't know what that is. Take advantage of it while it's happening.
While the sun shines.
Yes, make hay while the sun shines. I mean, the speed of business is so fast right now, and just every social media channel, it's just moving as quickly as possible. And the way people search for things changes. I mean, people have new buzzwords constantly. I was chatting with someone the other day. She sells these really cool ponytail hats. So you have a ponytail, and you can have like your ponytail sticking out of the knit cap. Well, she said,
one of those.
Yeah, she's awesome. 2 years ago, people were searching for ponytail hats, and now they're searching for ponytail beanies. So like the language that people are using is constantly changing. So I would maximize whatever is trending and get the most juice out of it for as long as you can before the shift happens.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. Before the shift happens. I know for me, like I can talk about clarity or boundaries from 150 different angles. Yeah. And that helps, right? So we just sort of throwing those words in there and coming at it from a different angle is important. That was a great question, Leora. Thank you. LinkedIn user said, thank you. I'm going to put that up there. And then let's see. Quick question. One of the things that I love is for you to share, if you're willing, 3 people. I know we just shared the resources, 3 people that have been helpful for you along the way that someone else might be able to kind of follow and help them as well.
Sure. Number one person that comes to mind is Stephen Wessner. So he is the one that got me into podcasting. He also runs a digital agency called predictiveroi.com. He produces a ridiculous amount of amazing content. So on LinkedIn, he's got videos and great articles. He's got a daily newsletter that's just plump full of awesomeness. Really? Yes. And he has a daily podcast episode as well, which I don't know how he does it.
Prolific.
But he's constantly interviewing high-level professionons globally on just best practices to be the best, business professional that you can be. So he's one of them. Second one I would say is Drew McClellan. So he's very specific to my industry. He advises, counsels, mentors, agency owners, such as myself. So I'm in a roundtable with him, a mastermind group with other agency owners that he facilitates, but he produces a ridiculous amount of amazing content as well. So there's a trend here. Individuals that create awesome content often are followed. And then from a very high level, I'm going to say Gary Vee. I mean, he's always been on the forefront of what to do and, some best practices. And he's just got a really good way of looking at things. And I respect what he's built and grown.
It's really impressive, and it's fun to watch him. Yeah. Kate said Stephen Wessner. Is it Wessner?
Yes. Yep.
His podcast, Onward Nation, is great.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Thanks, Kate. Speaking of podcasts and research and strategy, can you tie those three together and let us know what you think about podcasts as a part of your strategy?
Oh, for sure. So the podcast, oftentimes there's two different ways to look at that. I would say you can be strategic and try to get interviewed on other people's podcasts so that your message is getting in front of someone else's already established audience. And then what your goal is to find the podcast that their listenership is the same as the audience that you're trying to get in front of. Mm-hmm. So really, that's strategy number one. Number two is to start your own podcast where you're pulling people into your circle. You're creating your own community. And you can use that as a means of entertainment. So that goes back to that emotional connection. And I mean, really, if there is literally a podcast for every single topic on this planet that you can imagine, I promise you that.
Ones that are frightening.
Yes. We won't go down that rabbit hole. So, or you can, you have your podcast to connect. So like-minded individuals, whether it's, spiritual or getting through some emotional challenges, or just, you want to think and be a better business professional. And just general thought leadership as well. So I use my specific podcast, and this is a strategy or tactic that we've implemented for a number of our clients. That it's twofold. It's thought leadership and sales means lead generation. So I'm advocating for other people by inviting them to be a guest on my show. No fee for this whatsoever. I'm making them look awesome. And then I'm blasting it to my audience. But in addition, they're also sharing it to their audience. So my message is getting in front of a new set of ears. I was going to say eyeballs, but podcasting is ears. But now I've built a relationship with this individual that I had on my show, as opposed to just knocking on their door and saying, hey, you need to hire us to do your marketing. I'm knocking on their door and saying, you would be a great guest to be on my podcast. Let's have a conversation about this. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you were on my show. I think we were introduced by a mutual contact, and then we, look at all the fun things we've been doing together since then.
I know you got to love social media and just being able, I've never met you in person, but we've stayed connected. We've talked about writing books and being accountability partners and podcasts. And now you're on my show. Thank you, which I love.
Absolutely.
Absolutely love it. Would you go a little bit deeper and share with the audience some strategy on getting on other people's podcasts? Because I think that that's an amazing strategy, and to be able to do some research to make sure you're getting in front of the right audience for you to share your message.
Sure. So I would start by looking at the different categories and start listening to some shows, and make sure that you actually believe with the philosophy of the show. You don't want to align yourself with a show where you get on and you realize that that's not quite what I wanted to do with my brand. And then just reach out to the host. Oftentimes, a lot of the hosts are looking for guests. I know on my show, I have on my webpage, are you interested in being on the show? And then anyone can submit. And if I think you align with what it is that I'm trying to achieve, I'll definitely get you on my show. There are a number of services out there where you can hire them to actually do the searching for you. You tell them what you're trying to achieve, and they've got the relationships with a number of podcast hosts, and they'll help you get placed on shows and kind of act as an agent for you to some extent. I also just part of engaging in the groups on the social media channels. I'm a number of groups for either podcasts and or just entrepreneurs, business owners, and oftentimes the question will show up and say, hey, I host a podcast where I interview business owners. Anyone interested in being on my show? And I quickly raise my hand. The other thing I do is I subscribe to this is a very specific list. I'm sure there's a lot of them out there. It's called podcastguests.com. I get a weekly email, and individuals that are looking for guests just submit their information, and then I get a summary of these are all the hosts looking for guests, and if any of them look like a good fit, then I applied to be on the show.
Love it. Would you be willing, and I'm going to circle back around at the end, you've given so many great links and contacts and things for research, which is right, so good. Just to go back in and post them in the thread once we're done today, so that people can have these links, because they are incredibly important. And I just want to say that Lori's podcast just surpassed, is it 250?
250. Whew, I don't know how that happened.
And how often do you do your podcast?
I publish twice a week.
Twice a week? Holy cow, that's a lot.
It sure is. I have a good team behind me supporting me here.
Definitely. All right. So what else would you like to add to strategy? And for anyone that's listening, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box, whether it's right now live or on the replay, so that Lori can come back in and answer any questions. Be sure to tag her if you're listening to this on the replay.
Sure. I've got two things I want to cover. One, we did not cover competition. So one of the things that is important when you're doing some research is to dive into your competition. And, you don't need to get hung up on what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, but you just want to look at a high level. What is their message? What are they publishing? What channels are they engaging on? And are they getting engagement with the stuff that's being published out there? So if there's some topics that they're publishing that a lot of people are active on, that should be a trigger to you that says, this is a hot topic. Maybe I should take my own spin on this. And look at, how are they getting found in Google? And there's a lot of tools that let you kind of figure that out. Look at, again, what channels are they on? What is the frequency that they're publishing content? What groups are they involved in? So the better that you understand your competitors, actually, this is where I typically find the weaknesses of the competition, which really quickly become the opportunities for our clients then.
Perfect.
And the last thing I think that's extremely important with strategy, which can kind of convert back to research, is making sure that you're measuring the activities that you're doing. Oftentimes I see companies just doing things and then not knowing if it was successful. Going back to what those goals are on day one, when you say this is the goal I'm trying to achieve, you need to make sure and define how are you going to measure that we did indeed achieve this. And when you're looking at the tactics that you implement, you can look at Facebook likes or how many people commented on your LinkedIn post or whatever it is there. But you want to identify measurables that are going to help you make intelligent business decisions. That's kind of the theme here, isn't it? Is this data point going to help you adjust the plan or give you confidence that you're going down the right direction? Because if it's not, then don't worry about it.
Perfect. Two things. One, how long would you suggest that people sort of keep going down that avenue to see if it is working? And two, what are some apps or tools that you could recommend to help people keep track of their analytics?
Great question. So the answer is it depends. So as far as how long, it really, what is the goal? And SMART goals are time specific. So if it's a year-long goal, then I would say maybe look at the first quarter. Like, are we on track to hit this goal? If you've got an 8-week goal, then maybe about 25% of the way through is where you want to really audit and say, are we on track or off track with these specific milestones? As far as the tools go, it depends on the tactics that are in place. So Google Analytics is great for looking at your website, and each social media channel has its own amount of data points that they're willing to share. We just keep a spreadsheet for our clients because every client has a different strategy and tactics. There are a number of platforms that you can subscribe to where you're kind of pulling in all these data points from different channels, but we just found we're spending the same amount of time just building a cool graph in an Excel spreadsheet as we are using these other tools. So
that's good to know.
Yeah. And you're paying for these tools, and sometimes they have hiccups and don't work the way you want them to. So after many trial and errors, we just, good old Excel works fine for us.
I know that one, like the social media scheduling tool that I've used actually will show you the analytics of other people's, your competition's posts. Mm-hmm. What are the ones that are trending? What are the hashtags? What are the dates? And it gives you all sorts of insight. And I get Excel spreadsheet is what you're saying is like, it's the basics, right? You can keep coming back to that. But would you recommend, like the one that I've used before is SmarterQ, and I'm sure that there are so many other ones out there, but it has been helpful to go in and look at what either my competitor or maybe it's the center of influence person that I'm kind of following. What are they talking about? When are they posting throughout the day? When are they launching programs and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, those are all great insights to collect. And I would say that's probably more so data you want to collect on the research side of things, not something that you want to analyze on a daily basis. I mean, you don't want to paralysis by analysis, again, really focus on the data points that are going to help you to move forward.
Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to add? Is there any question that I did not ask you that you would like to share?
Oh, goodness. That's an open-ended question.
Isn't it?
No, I think that I'm happy to answer any questions at any time that anyone has. I get bombarded with a lot of questions. I love sharing my knowledge, but nothing's coming to me at this point in time.
Well, and then I'm going to ask you one more question. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get into your industry and into your field? If they're like, this sounds really cool and it lights me up, what would you recommend? What research would you suggest?
I would say find someone who's already doing it and connect with them. Find a mentor and figure out what is the path that they took. And I mean, marketing broadly could go so many different directions. And once you really find what kind of gets you excited and what you're passionate about, find someone that's a couple of years ahead of you and have that mentor.
Yeah, mentorship is so important. It really is. And that accountability, it's excellent answer. Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. So Lori, thank you. We're coming up on the hour. Where can people find you if they want to ask more questions, find out more information, check out your podcast?
Oh man, I've got a whole long list here. Happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. If you do reach out to connect, please just note that you saw me on Lisa's show here. My website, keystoneclick.com or lorihighby.com has information related to the Social Capital podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast on all the major podcast channels.
It's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. And, we've got tons of webinars right now. So pretty much every other week we have some sort of webinar related to marketing. Our next series is on marketing automation.
Ooh, quick question on that. Do you have a few topics that have just been running wild these days, given COVID?
Oh, in marketing in general, or
the webinars that you're giving? Are there a couple that are just like above and beyond that people?
Well, I mean, the strategy in general, like this is research and strategy has been a really hot topic because what I'm finding is due to COVID, the silver lining is that people are being a little bit more focused and strategic in their actions instead of just kind of doing whatever it is that they want to do. So those webinars have been extremely powerful as well. But then also they're finding it's a lot of work. So the automation component is this next step of saying, yes, you have to put in the time and energy, but you can make your life easier if you implement the automation that comes along with the marketing strategy.
So true. Yeah. I just want to read Kate Payne said, great interview. She said, really enjoyed Lori. And I love her classic for we marketing people. Answer to it depends. It's always right?
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So, all right, before we wrap up, I just want to share a couple of talks that I've got coming up through the month of October. Next week, next Thursday at noontime East Coast time, I'm going to be talking with John Schraven, who is a negotiation expert, master, all of that. And as he says, negotiation is not combat, it's a conversation. That's on October 8th. October 15th, I am talking with Kate Payne's brand new husband, They just got married a couple of weeks ago. Bill Atkinson, who is a Navy SEAL and teamwork expert. Again, he's going to be talking about character. October 22nd, Lisa Wilson, who is a leadership vision coach and HR consultant, talking about the need for self-care during these times, especially as a leader. And then on October 29th, I think it is a Thursday, so I don't have the date written down, but Paula Diaco, who is a book and writing coach and CEO and founder of Write Stories Now, is going to be sharing her brilliance with us. So thank you to everyone who has joined us. I greatly appreciate it. Lori, such a fun time as always. I love chatting with you. You're always full of amazing, amazing information. So if you are watching this live or on the replay, please feel free to jump in, post your comments, tag Lori if you want to learn more information, if you've got a question for her, if you want to see what it's like to work with her, reach out to her. So look forward to seeing you next week. And as always, to your success. Thanks. Bye.